When an HOA declares war on you, you have two choices: surrender or show them they picked the wrong target. Raymond thought he was living an ordinary life until his neighborhood's power-hungry overlords decided to tear down everything he built. But when someone sets a trap for you, there's always a way to turn it against them. What move did he pull to not just survive, but completely destroy them? Buckle up, this story is just getting started. For 48 years, Raymond Carter had been a peaceful man. He wasn't the type to stir up trouble. He kept to himself, ran an honest business fixing electronics out of his garage, and enjoyed the quiet life in his Texas suburb. His customers were happy, his work was steady, and up until now, he had zero enemies. And then came Karen Hopkins, 55 years old, chairwoman of the HOA, a woman with the uncanny ability to suck the joy out of any situation. She arrived on his driveway like an overzealous tax collector, a clipboard in hand and a face set in permanent disappointment. Her heels clicked against the pavement as she stopped in front of him, staring down at him like a school principal about to scold a student. Raymond was elbow deep in an old stereo, screwdriver in hand, when he heard the exaggerated throat clearing. He closed his eyes for a brief moment. Here we go. "Mr. Carter, we need to talk." Raymond sighed, setting his tools down. "Do we now?" Karen adjusted her blazer, the kind of movement that screamed self-importance. "We've received a complaint." Raymond raised an eyebrow. "A complaint? From who? About what?" Karen took a deep breath, as if she had been waiting for this moment all her life. With a dramatic flourish, she unfolded a piece of paper and began reading in the slowest, most condescending tone imaginable. "It has come to the HOA's attention that you are running a business from your home." She paused, letting the words sink in. "This is strictly prohibited under our bylaws. In addition, your clients contribute to unnecessary traffic and—" She squinted at the paper, her lips curling into a victorious smirk. "Your trash can is 2 inches outside the designated placement zone." Raymond blinked. Twice. He looked around, waiting for someone to jump out with a camera and yell, "Gotcha!" Nothing. "You have got to be joking." Karen's smile didn't budge. "I assure you, Mr. Carter, this is no joke." He folded his arms. "So let me get this straight. Me fixing radios in my own garage is some kind of crime now?" "It's a violation of HOA policy." Raymond let out a short laugh. "Oh well, in that case, let me just shut everything down and move into the woods." Karen's expression hardened. "You have exactly 1 week to cease all business operations. Failure to comply will result in escalating fines and potential legal action." She extended the notice like it was some official government decree. Raymond took it, glanced at it for less than a second, then promptly fed it into the paper shredder sitting on his workbench. Karen's mouth fell open. She stared in absolute horror as the document was reduced to tiny strips before her eyes. Raymond leaned back, arms crossed. "Well, looks like I lost the notice. Guess you'll have to send another one." Her face twitched. This isn't a joke, Mr. Carter. You're violating the rules." He tilted his head. "You mean rules I never agreed to? Because I bought this house before the HOA even existed?" That shut her up for exactly 3 seconds. Then she straightened her shoulders, her nostrils flaring slightly, and shot him a look that screamed, "This isn't over. You'll regret this decision." With that, she turned on her heel and marched off, her heels clicking like a judge's gavel, sentencing him to suburban doom. Raymond let out a slow breath, watching her retreat down the street. A week had passed. 7 days since Raymond Carter had shredded Karen Hopkins' so-called official notice and sent her marching back down his driveway. And now? Now, the real games had begun. At first, it was almost funny, like watching a bunch of overgrown hall monitors try to enforce the world's pettiest rules. But very quickly, the situation turned from mildly annoying to full-blown harassment. The first fine arrived the next morning. Raymond pulled the envelope out of his mailbox, opened it up, and found a letter from the HOA with a $50 fine for, get this, having his trash can placed at the wrong angle. That's right, not overflowing, not left out for too long, just turned slightly the wrong way. The next day, another fine. This time for $75 because a single leaf had landed on his lawn. The day after that, $150 for using his own power tools in his own garage. By the end of the week, he had a neat little stack of 5 different citations, all for infractions that a sane person wouldn't even consider real problems. And Karen? Every time she saw him, she made sure to flash him that smug little smile, like she knew something he didn't. But fines weren't enough. HOA wanted to cut deeper. At first, Raymond didn't even notice. A couple of regular clients canceled their appointments. No big deal. Then more emails started rolling in. Customers were apologizing, saying they couldn't risk any issues with the HOA. That's when he found the notes, taped onto windshields, stuffed into mailboxes. This man is operating an illegal business. HOA will take action if you continue to support him. Raymond gritted his teeth. This was a direct attack. They weren't just trying to shut him down. They were trying to ruin his reputation. And still, it got worse. The first time the power flickered out, Raymond thought it was just bad wiring. The second time, he figured it was a faulty circuit. The third, fourth, and fifth time, he knew someone was messing with him. Every single night, sometime around 2 a.m., the power would mysteriously cut out. The refrigerator would reset, his tools would be dead by morning, and his security system, completely useless. Coincidence? Not a chance. So Raymond did what any rational man under siege would do. He set a trap. That night, he sat in total darkness, perched by his back window with a thermos of coffee, a flashlight, and a camera rolling. For hours, nothing. Then, right around 2:13 a.m., he saw it. A shadow moving across his backyard. Someone lurking by his electrical panel. He grabbed his flashlight and bolted outside. The beam of light landed directly on a figure in a hooded sweatshirt, crouched over his power box. They froze, then, slowly, stood up. The hood fell back, revealing Hannah Mills, 37 years old, the HOA's accountant. Raymond blinked. Of all the people he expected, he hadn't pictured the woman responsible for balancing HOA's budget. Hannah tilted her head, offering a fake, sweet smile. "Oh, hi, Mr. Carter. Didn't see you there." Raymond narrowed his eyes. "You have got to be kidding me." She smirked, crossing her arms. "I was just taking a walk." "In my backyard?" She shrugged. "You know how it is. No sidewalks around here. Gotta make do." Raymond held up his phone, the camera still recording. "Smile, Hannah. You're on video." For the first time, her expression faltered, just for a second. Then, just as quickly, she recovered. She smirked again. "You won't be able to prove anything." Raymond grinned back. "Oh, I don't need to prove anything. I just need to show this to the right people." At 9 a.m. sharp, Raymond walked into the local police department, handed over his phone, and laid out the whole situation. The officer on duty nodded along, watching the footage. He took a report, logged it into the system. Raymond actually started to feel like justice might be served. Then, nothing. By the time he followed up, his report had mysteriously disappeared. It was like he had never even been there. That's when he realized this wasn't just HOA nonsense anymore. This was war. Raymond Carter sat in his kitchen, staring at the empty police report on his desk, the one that should have been filed, the one that mysteriously disappeared. It didn't take a genius to figure out what happened. HOA wasn't just trying to harass him anymore. They were trying to break him, and if they thought he was just going to roll over and take it, they had no idea who they were messing with. First order of business, get a lawyer. Raymond walked into the office of Elliot James, a man who looked like he hadn't smiled in at least 2 decades. Late 50s, sharp suit, the kind of guy who could make a traffic ticket feel like a federal crime. Elliot leaned back in his chair, skimming over the stack of HOA citations Raymond had collected. Then, without looking up, he asked, "Mr. Carter, do you have a contract with the HOA?" Raymond crossed his arms. "Nope. Bought this house before they even existed." Elliot finally glanced up, and for the first time, a slow grin spread across his face. "Perfect. Then legally, they can't touch you." Oh, now this was getting interesting. Time to go on offense. Step 1. Raymond filed an official lawsuit against the HOA for harassment, citing every single bogus fine they had hit him with. Step 2. He compiled a detailed complaint to the city about the HOA's intimidation tactics, including the little midnight power stunt Hannah pulled. Step 3. He pulled out his phone, hit record, and filmed a full expose on Karen, her minions, and every underhanded move they had made. And then, he uploaded it. Within hours, the video blew up. People love a good HOA horror story, and this was next-level suburban warfare. Neighbors started stopping by, sharing their own HOA nightmare experiences. Turns out, Raymond wasn't the first one Karen had targeted, just the first one who fought back. HOA's reputation was tanking fast, and Karen? She must have realized the walls were closing in, because instead of backing off, she went for the nuclear option. 3 days later, Raymond stepped outside, coffee in hand, and froze. His garage was destroyed, shattered windows, equipment smashed beyond repair. His workbench, gone. It wasn't vandalism. This wasn't some random act of destruction. This was a message, and standing there, arms crossed, watching him like she had just won the lottery? Karen Hopkins. 55 years old, HOA president, full-time menace. She smiled, tilting her head. "Oh dear, looks like you have an emergency, Mr. Carter." Raymond inhaled slowly, his hands clenched into fists, his entire body rigid. Then he smiled back, not because he was okay, but because she had just made the biggest mistake of her life. He met her gaze, his voice calm. "You just messed with the wrong guy." Karen Hopkins had spent the last few weeks pushing Raymond Carter to his limits. She fined him, sabotaged his business, turned his customers against him, and even tried to cut his power in the middle of the night. And when that didn't work, she destroyed his garage. Karen thought that was the final move, the checkmate, the knockout punch. But there was one thing she didn't know. Raymond wasn't just some guy with a toolbox. He was a guy with insurance. See, Raymond wasn't an idiot. He had been in business long enough to know that bad things happen. So when he started his repair shop, he insured every last piece of his equipment for $250,000. So the morning after the destruction, while Karen was probably celebrating her victory with a fresh batch of HOA bylaws, Raymond was on the phone with his insurance company. And they didn't play games. Within days, an investigator was on the scene, and as luck would have it, multiple neighbors had security cameras that caught everything. And by everything, that meant Karen standing in front of the garage, barking orders. HOA goons smashing windows and overturning workbenches. One of them spray painting "No businesses allowed" on the garage door like a calling card. There was no getting out of this one. The footage made its way to the police, and just like that, Karen wasn't just a neighborhood nuisance anymore. She was a criminal. By the time Raymond walked into court, he was calm, collected, and 100% ready to watch this HOA circus collapse. Karen, on the other hand, she looked like a deer caught in headlights. The moment the judge hit play on the video evidence, everything changed. There she was, clear as day, ordering her HOA lackeys to tear apart Raymond's garage like it was some kind of twisted community project. When the footage ended, the courtroom fell into dead silence. The judge, a man in his 60s who had probably seen every type of HOA nonsense imaginable, slowly removed his glasses and stared at Karen over the rim. Then, in the calmest voice possible, he said, "Mrs. Hopkins, you have committed willful destruction of private property. That is a criminal offense." Karen, ghost white. Her fingers trembled against the table as she tried to speak. But what could she say? The evidence was right there. Raymond leaned back in his chair, enjoying every second of it. The ruling was brutal. HOA was ordered to pay Raymond $500,000 in damages. Karen was removed from her position and charged with criminal destruction of property. The HOA completely dissolved after the scandal. Karen tried to fight it, of course, claimed it was all a misunderstanding, that she was just following protocol. But the judge? He didn't buy a word of it. With the HOA in shambles, Raymond finally did what he had been wanting to do for weeks. He walked out of that courtroom with a grin. But the best part? He wasn't done yet. With his payout secured, Raymond had one last move to make. The HOA's office building went up for sale shortly after the scandal. No one wanted to be associated with them, and the property was practically being given away. So what did Raymond do? He bought it. And then he turned it into his new repair shop. On opening day, right above the door, he hung a massive sign, "Tech repair and destroying HOA, free of charge." People loved it. Neighbors who had dealt with HOA nonsense for years dropped by just to laugh at the sign. And Karen? Well, nobody's heard from her since. What would you do in Raymond's place? Would you fight back like he did, or find another way to deal with HOA madness? Have you or someone you know ever had to deal with over-the-top neighborhood rules or an HOA drunk on power? Share your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it. Don't forget to like the story if you enjoyed it and spread the word so more people can be aware of these real-life issues. This story isn't just for entertainment. It's about shedding light on a real problem that affects homeowners everywhere. Your voice matters. Let's make the world a better place, one story at a time.